The morning after Sheriff Hayes found the locket, Ashford Creek seemed even smaller than before. The mist hung low over the creek, the sun weak behind clouds that smelled of early autumn rain. Inside the sheriff's office, Hayes sat behind his desk, the locket in a small evidence bag between his hands. He had barely slept in 3 nights. The town was buzzing with whispers about the photograph inside, the girl no one recognized, the way the chain was broken. Denise Cordell arrived mid-morning, eyes swollen from tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed in front of anyone but her husband. "Sheriff," she said, her voice quivering, "what does it mean?" Hayes didn't answer immediately. He let the silence stretch, letting the gravity settle. "It means," he said finally, "someone left this here for a reason. Someone is trying to tell us something or distract us." Over the next week, the investigation shifted. Hayes, normally a man who relied on instinct, now pored over reports, suspect lists, and interviews with a meticulous obsession that bordered on paranoia. The town's residents, once cooperative, began to squirm under the scrutiny. Every minor infraction, every odd behavior was now a thread in a growing tapestry of suspicion. The sheriff brought in 2 officers from neighboring counties, both trained in interrogation techniques increasingly influenced by psychological profiling, a field still in its infancy in small-town Oregon, but gaining ground thanks to popular media coverage of the FBI as Behavioral Analysis Unit. The first person Hayes wanted to speak with was Amber's closest friend, Lila Harmon. Lila had been the last to see Amber the night she disappeared. On October 1st, 1999, Hayes called her to the station. The room was small, a single fluorescent light buzzing overhead, casting shadows across the walls. Lila, 16 now, fidgeted with her sleeves. We watched the movie," she started, voice barely audible. "Then Amber said she needed to get home. She didn't want me to walk her all the way." Hayes leaned forward, studying her closely. "Lila, did Amber mention anyone? Anyone who made her uneasy? Someone she might have met on her way home?" Lila shook her head. "No, maybe. There's a guy, Jared. He's always hanging around the football field, sometimes late. But Amber, she didn't seem worried about him." Jared Martin, age 18, local dropout. Known for petty theft and a reputation for being unpredictable, though nothing serious enough to warrant prison time. Hayes filed that detail away. The mind wants patterns, he reminded himself. The human psyche loves connections even where none exist. The next day, Hayes interviewed Jared. The young man lounged in the chair, arms crossed, eyes shifting between the sheriff and the locket on the table. "I don't know anything," he said immediately. Hayes had heard that before every suspect claimed innocence, even those caught red-handed. "You were near the creek the night Amber disappeared," Hayes pressed, voice calm but insistent. "Multiple people reported seeing a light-colored sedan parked near the bridge around 11:30 p.m. Jared's face paled slightly. I was walking home from my cousin's house. I didn't see anyone. I don't even drive." Hayes studied him. The lie was subtle, just the tightening of the jaw, the fleeting dart of eyes. Behavioral profiling suggested that kind of micro-expression often meant omission, not fabrication. He made a note, observe more closely, verify alibi. Meanwhile, Denise Cordell grew increasingly uneasy with the attention on her daughter's friends. She noticed subtle changes, whispered phone calls, hesitant glances, and in one instance, Lila speaking with Jared for hours in the park while pretending to jog. Hayes, noticing the same, decided to expand the suspect pool. He created a small chart. Anyone with proximity to Amber on May 24th, and anyone exhibiting unusual behavior since. The chart began to resemble a spider web. Neighbors, classmates, acquaintances, each string connecting in ways that suggested patterns Hayes could not yet define. On October 15, 1999, forensic analysis of the locket returned with inconclusive but tantalizing results. A partial fingerprint on the back, smudged but potentially matchable to someone who had access to Amber's circle. The lab, still catching up with the backlog common to that era, could not give immediate verification. Hayes felt the weight of time pressing against him. Every day without answers felt like sinking into quicksand. He returned to Amber's house that evening to talk to her parents, who were now living in a constant state of watchfulness. Denise clutched her hands, staring at the locket as though it contained some hidden message only she could decipher. "I feel like someone's been here before," she whispered, voice trembling. "I keep thinking maybe Amber recognized them. Maybe she knew them." Hayes nodded, understanding too well. Recognition can be as deadly as any stranger's malice. "We're going to find out," he said, though even he wasn't certain he believed it. 2 weeks later, a local teacher, Martha Lewis, requested a private meeting. She had been Amber's history teacher and mentor, the adult in her life who most knew her routines. In the cramped back room of the school library, she revealed a detail that chilled Hayes. "Amber mentioned a new friend at the end of May," she said softly. She wouldn't say who, just that she felt uneasy around them. The sheriff scribbled notes furiously. A new friend, someone Amber hadn't mentioned to Lila or anyone else. Someone who might explain the mysterious photograph in the locket. Hayes felt a shiver. The psychological implications were immediate. Amber may have trusted this person or feared them. Either way, it opened a new dimension in the investigation. The threat was closer than they had imagined. By November, the town's fear had escalated. The local newspaper ran a front-page feature. "Amber's disappearance. Who's watching Ashford Creek?" Families spoke in hushed tones, worried for their children, while Hayes continued his methodical interrogation schedule. Every suspect, every friend, every neighbor became a potential key. The locket remained on his desk, a constant reminder that the truth was simultaneously tangible and elusive. One night, late November 1999, Hayes called Lila back to the station. She arrived, nervous and pale, and when questioned about new friends or unusual interactions, she finally hesitated. There was someone Amber trusted, she admitted, voice quivering. "A boy. He seemed nice at first, but then he started, I don't know, controlling. She wouldn't tell me his name, but..." Her eyes widened, tears forming. Hayes leaned forward. "But what, Lila?" She swallowed hard, shaking. I think it was someone from inside her own circle. Someone she saw every day. Someone who could get close without anyone noticing. She mentioned feeling scared around him before she disappeared." Hayes closed his eyes briefly. He had suspected as much, but confirmation always felt heavier than uncertainty. Inside the room, the weight of small-town betrayal pressed down, and he realized that the investigation was no longer about random chance. It was about trust, control, and secrets carefully hidden behind ordinary faces. And then came the call that would fracture the investigation further. A local handyman, known for odd jobs around the Cordell house, had been cleaning gutters behind the Cordell property when he found a note wedged under a loose shingle. Hayes retrieved it carefully. The handwriting was small, precise, unfamiliar. The words were chilling. "You'll never see her again, and if you try, you'll wish you hadn't looked so closely." The sheriff read the note again, slowly, tracing each letter with his finger. It was a direct message, a psychological twist. Someone knew he was watching. Someone wanted him to feel the fear Amber must have felt. That night, Hayes sat alone at his desk, the locket open beside him. The photo of Amber and the unknown girl stared up from the cracked glass. He felt a surge of dread that was more than professional. It was deeply personal. Somewhere in Ashford Creek, the person responsible for Amber's disappearance was not just hiding. They were playing a game, manipulating everyone in the town like pieces on a board. Hayes whispered to himself, almost too quietly to be heard. Some shadows aren't meant to be uncovered. Some shadows watch you first. The next morning, Hayes returned to the sheriff's office with a grim determination. He had spent the night reviewing every note, every statement, every photograph tied to Amber. The locket sat open on his desk, its small photograph now almost ominous under the fluorescent light. He could no longer ignore the possibility that the unknown boy Lila had mentioned was someone deeply enmeshed in Amber's daily life, a presence so close that he had remained invisible to everyone else. He began by re-interviewing Amber's classmates, starting with a girl named Rachel Marino. Rachel was quiet, cautious, and meticulous about her words, the type of student who always noticed details others overlooked. Hayes noticed her hesitation immediately. "Rachel," he began, "Amber mentioned feeling uneasy around someone new in her circle. Did she ever talk to you about it?" Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. She did, but she didn't give a name. She just said she couldn't trust him. She said he had eyes that watched too closely, like he wanted to know everything before it happened." Hayes made a note. Watching, control, manipulation, the pattern was becoming clearer. But what unsettled him most was the specificity. A person who monitors, who anticipates, who erodes trust quietly. This was not random misfortune. This was calculated. Over the next several days, Hayes combined his own observations with reports from the town. Each interview added a piece to a puzzle that refused to reveal the full image. Teachers noted students who suddenly avoided Amber. Neighbors reported seeing unfamiliar faces loitering near her usual routes. Hayes began to suspect that Amber's abductor was someone who could navigate unnoticed in familiar spaces, someone both bold and patient. On November 28, 1999, Hayes received a tip from a local convenience store clerk. A young man had been asking detailed questions about the Cordell household. When Amber's parents were home, what time she usually left for school, and who she spent time with after class. The description matched none of the known suspects. Hayes felt a tightening in his chest. The unknown boy was no longer just a shadow in Amber's memory. He had crossed into the town, into the lives of those who might protect her. Hayes decided it was time to confront Jared Martin again, suspect or not. Jared had been cooperative in previous sessions, but Hayes suspected that under the calm exterior lay cracks waiting to be exploited. Jared sat in the same chair, arms folded, the locket now displayed openly on the desk. Hayes started slowly, with careful observation, testing the young man's reactions. "You've seen this before," Hayes said gently, tapping the photo inside the locket. "Tell me what you remember." Jared's eyes flickered. I don't know anything new," he replied, a defensive edge in his voice. But Hayes noticed the micro-expressions, the tightening around the eyes, the slight tilt of the head, the faint tremor in the hand. "You remember someone else," Hayes pressed. "Someone Amber trusted who frightened her. You know something, Jared. Your hesitation says it." Jared's face paled, his jaw tightening. I don't know his name. I know Amber trusted him." Hayes leaned in closer. "Do you know where he might be now?" Jared hesitated, his breathing shallow. I can't say I'm scared. He'll know if I talk." That admission hung in the air like a storm cloud. Hayes scribbled the notes, recognizing a psychological pattern. Fear of retribution, loyalty twisted by intimidation, a sense of omnipresence. This was more than a kid who liked control. It was someone with a talent for manipulating trust, someone dangerous. Meanwhile, Denise Cordell grew more frantic. She spent her days checking the backyard, the trees, the streets, convinced that Amber's presence lingered in small, unseen ways. On December 2nd, 1999, she called Hayes in a panic. "I found something in Amber's room," she said, voice trembling. "Under her mattress, a notebook. It's filled with notes about the new boy she trusted. She wrote his favorite places, what he liked, even what he said about other students." Hayes came immediately. The notebook revealed a disturbing pattern. Amber had been documenting interactions, not as a game, but as a way to protect herself, to understand him before he could control her completely. The entries suggested she had recognized early that he was manipulative, intelligent, and capable of cruelty, but she had underestimated the extent. As Hayes pored over the notebook, he realized the implications were personal. Amber's insight had been correct. The person closest to her had been the one she feared most. And now, with the discovery, the investigation had crossed into intimate territory. This wasn't about a stranger lurking in shadows. This was about betrayal, deception, and someone exploiting trust in its rawest form. That evening, Hayes returned home late. The town was quiet, the streets empty, the chill of December creeping in. As he entered his living room, the phone rang. The voice on the line was calm, eerily familiar, almost intimate. "Sheriff Hayes," it said. "You're looking in the wrong place." Hayes gripped the receiver. "Who is this?" There was a pause, a faint laugh. "You know who I am. You just don't want to admit it." The line went dead. Hayes felt a cold knot in his stomach. He knew instinctively that the voice belonged to someone he had trusted in town, a person whose face had been familiar, whose presence had been comforting. And yet the voice had betrayed everything he thought he knew. Back at the station, he reviewed all his notes, all the interviews, all the little details that had seemed trivial before. And then he saw it, a subtle pattern in the handwriting of the note, the locket photograph, Jared's hesitation, Amber's notebook. Everything pointed to the same person, someone within the Cordell family's own orbit, someone who had been under their noses the entire time. Hayes slumped in his chair, the weight of revelation pressing down. Amber had sensed it. Lila had sensed it. And now he had no choice but to confront the unthinkable. As the night deepened over Ashford Creek, the camera of TrueShadows Reel would linger on the sheriff's office once more. Papers scattered, the locket open, the telephone silent, but the presence was felt, the shadow of betrayal looming, the dark truth waiting to emerge. Next, on TrueShadows Reel, Sheriff Hayes uncovers the face behind Amber's fear, the betrayal that hits closer than anyone imagined, and a secret that will shatter the town's fragile trust forever.